Hi, everybody. You're watching Moms Matter. I'm your host, Shirin Yadigar. And today we're joined with Carolyn Siegel. She is the executive director and founder of If You Heard What I Heard, which is a Los Angeles-based nonprofit focused on hearing the stories of Holocaust survivors through the lens of their grandchildren. And you are the grandchild of Holocaust survivors.
Right. Yes.
And I feel like now with everything going on in the world, it is such an important time to tune into these stories and your narrative and what's going on. I actually just read that since the horrific massacre of Hamas against innocent civilians on October 7th, the ADL reported a 388% uptick in vandalism, hate crimes. I mean, the list goes on and on. We're seeing it on college campuses. Kids are fearful. They're locking themselves in their dorms. Right. You've heard these stories firsthand from your grandparents. Are you concerned about what's happening?
Of course. I think all of us need to be vigilant and be concerned about what's happening right now. We all need to be aware and keep our eyes open. And it is very concerning. And I think for those of us who are grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, you know, I grew up hearing these stories my whole life. Right. And I always used to ask my grandfather, how did you know that things were getting bad? What were the warning signs? Well, we're seeing it today. These are our warning signs. A rise of anti-Semitism is a very, very big warning sign that we all need to pay attention to.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I really haven't been able to sleep. I'm sure you feel the same. Yeah. I know so many of us in the community are scared for ourselves. We're scared for our children. Yeah. But right before we started, you said to me, don't be scared. What was your messaging with that?
So I've actually felt very scared in the past several weeks. And I think a lot of us, you know, like you, I know you've been working very hard and doing a lot to stand up to anti-Semitism as well. I think most of us feel like we haven't slept in weeks. I know I certainly feel that way. And seeing this rise of anti-Semitism and having that sort of historical trauma kick in a little bit as well, you can't help but have your guard up. You can't help but feel fearful. And I really had to reconcile that a couple days ago, and I was feeling very afraid, and it was really impacting my life. You know, I was sort of living in this Instagram bubble and infinite scroll, which we all do. Right. And I took myself out of that, and I thought about my Holocaust survivor grandfather. My mom's parents survived the Holocaust, and my grandfather had some pretty horrific experiences, and I learned a lot about his story in bits and pieces throughout my life, but hearing his story, it really made me respect how strong he was to get through that. And so a few days ago, I really just had this reconciliation of, you know, I have a choice. I can be fearful or I could be strong. And it's okay to be scared and strong, but it's not okay to just be scared and live in just being scared. And I said, you know what? I'm going to choose to be strong because I have that in me. It's in my DNA. My grandparents got through it. I can get through this too. We as a people can get through this, but we have to be strong and we have to recognize that it's okay to be scared too.
Right.
I know my grandfather was scared when he was going through what he went through, but we have to be strong.
I mean, you've captured so many of these stories, right, that are so frightening and gruesome. Your own grandparents and then all the others that you've captured on film for your nonprofit. Are there any stories that you kind of see parallels with that we're seeing right now? Because when I talk about this and people will say, what are you talking about? There's nothing going on. Everything's fine. The Jewish people are so strong.
Yeah, I mean, there are absolutely a lot of parallels, and I filmed 40 stories of grandchildren of Holocaust survivors on our site, ifyouheardwhatiheard.com, and I encourage everyone to take a listen to these interviews because they're not just about these interviews of, you know, horrific stories of pain and loss and heroic stories of survival, but they're also stories of resilience, which I think we all really need right now. Yeah. But it's interesting because I was just talking to our rabbinic advisor, Rabbi Jeremy Ruberg, today, and we were talking about his grandfather's story, and his grandfather survived Kristallnacht in Germany, so very early on, and survived by being sent on the Kindertransport to England, and that's how he survived. But I said, Jeremy, what were the warning signs? And he said, you know, seeing businesses close, Jewish businesses close is certainly one of them, but we talked a little bit about those warning signs, and so many of the interviews talk about, you know, neighbors either turned away or, you know, or joined the movement. They, you know, turned against them or turned a blind eye. And I think we're seeing some of that today. You know, we've said a lot right now, silence speaks volumes. And I think we're seeing that, and we say that because of what we've been through the Holocaust, because not enough people stood up. And I'm even thinking of Shoshana Gruss, who's one of our amazing interviewees, and she talks about that too, that the neighbors just stood idly by as her family and the Jews in their town were being massacred. Yeah. Thankfully, we are not at that point right now, but we are seeing this uptick in anti-Semitic incidents. We are seeing this uptick in violence. So if we don't pay attention and if we don't do something about it, right, it could happen again. It is happening again. Yeah. But it's going to take not just Jews standing up. It's going to take our allies, all of our friends, everyone, whether you're Jewish or not, to stand up and say, I'm not going to let this happen again. Never again is now.
Yes, absolutely. Never again is now. I mean, when you're on a college campus and your friends, your sorority and fraternity brothers and sisters decide that they're not going to talk to you because you're a Zionist, yeah, that is a warning sign.
Absolutely.
And that is very scary for young teenagers who are just starting to live their lives independently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it is a very scary time. But again, I think we have to rely on our strength. We have to look back on that and say we are strong, and we have to hold on to our faith as well. You know, being proud to be Jewish and being a proud Zionist is important right now.
It is.
It is important. We have to stand behind Israel. And I've had a lot of conversations, you know, personally in the past few weeks around, well, the Israeli government. Now is not the time to criticize the Israeli government. We are all brothers and sisters, and our homeland is going through this. And so we have to stick together. And, you know, I'm sure you've heard this before, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. It's true.
It is true. But I mean, you talk about the neighbors who sat by and watched as families were being gathered and sent to concentration camps, right?
Yeah.
So what's your message to people who are watching who are not Jewish,
yeah,
who may not know really what's going on? What's your message to them right now?
I mean, please, at the very least, come to our website, ifyouheardwhatiheard.com, and watch our stories to get some education on, you know, the historical pain and what our people have been through in the past. And also maybe take some hope from that and help us stand up to it now. Be our allies. We need friends now. We need support. You know, I don't want to be having these conversations that I've been having over the past 3 weeks of, should I take my mezuzah down? You know, our mezuzah is there to protect us. Yes. That's a really scary thing to be like, oh, this symbol could make us a target.
Yes.
So what do I do? And I think we could all use a little reassurance and support from our non-Jewish friends saying, don't take your mezuzah down. I got you. I'm going to look out for you.
Right.
We need that right now.
Right. And I'm so thankful to so many of my non-Jewish friends who have reached out, you know, and it really is reassuring. Just a text, just a phone call to say, I'm here with you. I got your back. Don't worry. You're not in this alone. Means the world. It really talks volumes to it, you know. And going to what you're saying about how the signs of stores closing down and people going into their homes, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying we shouldn't take our mezuzahs down. We should wear our, you know, Magen Davids with pride, even if we're feeling scared. Why is that so important?
You know, Rabbi Jeremy Ruberg and I talk about this a lot. As I mentioned, he's our rabbinic advisor for If You Heard What I Heard. And, you know, he actually says, so I filmed his interview about 3 years ago, and he says this in his If You Heard What I Heard interview, well before any of this started. He said, we have to continue living Jewish lives, and we have to be proud Jews. We have to be proud Jews and continue being Jewish in our hearts, in our homes, and display that. Because it shows to the world, we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're not backing down, we're strong, and we're going to get through this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm just so proud of all the work you're doing. And I know what a hard time this is for all of us. And to be the voice that's grounding people and saying, let's grab community. I know you've been holding on, doing a lot of events and bringing community together, which I think is such an important thing to do right now.
Yeah.
And if there's any message you want to share with everyone who's watching today about the work you're doing and how it feels to be a Jewish woman today in America in the face of all this Jewish hate, what's your message that you want to share with everyone?
You know, I never thought that I'd be living in a time where I'd have to worry about the same things that my grandparents did. I never thought we'd see it. You know, it always felt very foreign to me hearing their stories. My grandmother hid during the Holocaust. She had light hair and light eyes, and she bought a cross necklace and nannied for a family that didn't know she was Jewish. And she hid her Judaism. And I grew up going to Jewish day school my whole life. Judaism is a big part of my identity, and I could never understand how she could hide. I remember asking her, well, when the holidays came around, you didn't just like in your heart celebrate the holidays? You didn't think about, say the Shema to yourself at night? And she said, no, during that time I wasn't Jewish, because if I were Jewish, I would have been killed. And I think about that a lot. And I've always said, I'm so proud to be Jewish because she had to hide. I want everyone to know that I am proud to be Jewish. And I'm not wearing it today, but I generally wear my Magen David, my star, out proudly. But in the past few weeks, now I have more empathy for what she went through than I ever did. And I never thought that we'd be in this position. I never thought I'd be having the conversations that I've had over the past few weeks. But I keep coming back to the resilience, and I keep coming back to the strength. And, our grandparents, my grandparents, got through the worst of the worst. They saw the absolute worst of humanity. And I've heard that in the 39 other stories that are on our website, these horrific stories of how these grandparents, these people that we loved, were tortured and put in camps and so close to death so many times, and got through it and came out of it and continued Judaism. Because they did that, I get to practice my Judaism. We all get to celebrate ours.
That's right.
And so we have to hold on to that.
Absolutely.
And, in my family, we've been celebrating Shabbat every week and lighting extra candles. I adopted an IDF soldier. You could do that online. They give you an opportunity to adopt a soldier, and I light an extra candle for her every week. And it's a reminder that we're not alone, and we have a strong army now.
Yes.
Which we did not have. My grandparents didn't have that.
No, we didn't.
My mom and I joke a lot that, I said, what do you think Papa would do if he were alive today and seeing this? She said he'd be on the first flight to Israel, joining the IDF, going and standing up to this hate.
Right.
And we actually have one of our interviewees, Label Mengel, is an IDF reservist. He actually chose to join the IDF as a lone soldier years ago. And I just found out recently that he went back to Israel. He's in Israel right now. And he says in his interview, I wanted to join the IDF because I wanted to be part of an army that stood for never again. Yes. I wanted to be able to wear the uniform and look my grandfather in the eye and tell him, your sacrifices were not in vain. And, I'm wearing the uniform now, and I'm not going to let what happened then happen again. Right. And that makes me feel so proud. And I'm so, knowing that Label is there, representing our community, fighting, on behalf of our people, it makes me so proud.
Yeah. And for people who don't understand the importance of Israel for the Jewish people, it's the only homeland we have. Yeah. It's the only place in the world that is going to keep us safe and secure. And it wasn't around during the Holocaust, to your point. And that's why we're standing so strong, because we only have one Jewish homeland. And that's why the whole nation right now is there fighting. Every single person who lives there is there fighting, and they're fighting for never again. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I so appreciate that you're gathering these stories. And I really urge everyone who's watching right now, if they haven't been to your Instagram account, to go and visit and educate themselves, because some people will turn around and deny the Holocaust happened, just like they're denying that October 7th happened. And you have it documented. You have these stories, right?
Yes.
And they're
absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. They're there for everyone to watch. Again, if you heard whatiheard.com, they're only 30-minute interviews. Go and watch them and hear these stories. I mean, if anything, you'll be so inspired.
Yes.
Because of the resilience and because of the strength. I mean, that's what, as we've talked about, that's what I've been drawing on. And I know that a lot of our other interviewees, we've had this conversation, they're all drawing on that too, that inner strength that we have to get through this. And we have to have that.
That's right.
So yeah, absolutely.
And we will together prevail. Yeah. We are bringing light to the universe. We believe in goodness. We don't victimize ourselves. We stand strong for humanity. And at the end of the day, good always wins over evil. And I love the work you're doing. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for empowering us. And for anyone who hasn't been to the site, go visit. Make sure you tune in and share these stories. Share them with everyone you know. Help educate people about what has happened. And never again is now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to speak up and stand up against anti-Semitism. It really does take all of us together.
It does. We all have our part, and I appreciate you being here. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And for all of our non-Jewish allies, thank you for tuning in. Please go visit and share these stories, and together we can make this world better and more loving. Let's get rid of all the hate.